The Sensitive Man. Hello and welcome to episode 37 of the Sensitive Man podcast. I'm Sam Lim, and are you satisfied with how you're performing in life? If you or someone you know is struggling with stress, anxiety, depression, poor memory, or decreased performance at work, listen, there's hope. Santiago Brand, Clinical Director of MindLab, tells us more.
It is okay not to be okay. And I think as long as you're not doing anything illegal or immoral, it should not really matter what other people think. You should take care of yourself and be open about it if you want to, or at least be secretive about it. But seeking professional help is very, very important.
Santiago will also share how the brain can be trained to become more optimistic, even if the future is uncertain during these times.
Training the brain makes sense because, it makes you more resilient to the present times. But it can also help build resilience towards the future, meaning you can have a healthier, stronger brain that can help you withstand stress, anxiety, depression, and poor sleep in a more efficient manner. That means you can navigate through the obstacles of life.
The voice of Santiago Brand, Clinical Director of MindLab. Trust me, it's a really good interview with Santiago because you'll feel that someone finally understands you, that you're not alone on this, and that there's an alternative client care to become a new and better version of yourself. So are you ready? I'm Simon, and let's get into the interview. You're listening to The Sensitive Man. I'm Simon Lim. Hi, Santiago.
Hi, Simon. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to my show. Now, Santiago, perhaps you could start by telling my listeners what MindLab does in your own words, in a nutshell.
Yeah, what we do is we assess your brain activity and we train your brain to optimize its functioning with state-of-the-art technology.
And as the founder and clinical director of MindLab, now what was the compelling reason to start MindLab? I mean, did you notice any behavioral changes or trends in society?
Well, yes, I've been doing this for 13 years now, and I just recently moved to Singapore. So, I really enjoy what I do. It just made sense to me to continue doing it here in Singapore. I noticed that people have mental health issues and undergo stress and poor sleep and everything that's going on with the pandemic, just like everywhere else in the world. I thought it would make sense to help fellow human beings to feel happier and better and go through this situation in a healthy way, and just to be able to optimize the brain activity so that they can be more resilient to events like this in the future.
And Santiago, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted people's lives directly and indirectly. I mean, from job losses, downsizing or closure of businesses, and even the way we lead our lives, the way we communicate and interact with each other. Now, many people may feel isolated and depressed. So how can the brain be trained to become more optimistic when the future is uncertain?
Well, that's a very good question because what I'm noticing is that the effects of the pandemic are wreaking havoc on pretty much anybody at any age. One of the first things, one of the features that I'm noticing is people's sleep. And I have also sensed people feeling more depressed and somewhat hopeless here in Singapore and back home when I talk to family and friends. And training the brain makes sense because, it makes you more resilient to the present times. But it can also help build resilience towards the future, meaning you can have a healthier, stronger brain that can help you withstand stress, anxiety, depression, and poor sleep in a more efficient manner. That means you can navigate through the obstacles of life, a more positive attitude, with a more positive outlook on life. And I think that's very important, managing your stress and learning how to self-regulate, how to manage your own emotions. It's a very important thing, and it many times or very often starts in the brain.
I like what you said about managing your emotions, so important.
It is very important, and now more than ever, because we are undergoing so many emotions at the same time with things going back to lockdowns. And it's hard to cope with that. So learning how to compartmentalize how you feel helps you become healthier, helps you stay healthier and more positive down the road. And that's very, very important. And it's also very important to take care of your brain health, because one of the things I'm noticing is that this is just the beginning. Post-pandemic, I think we're going to see a lot of mental health issues and autoimmune disorders and things that are going to be triggered by the constant stress we're undergoing currently. Yeah, we don't take care of our brain now. We're going to be much worse down the road, because we are going to be adding to the problem by just not sleeping well and cultivating just negative emotions. So we need to exercise, eat well, and just be as positive as we can be. Not look at the world with rose-colored glasses, but just have a healthy attitude towards things.
You're listening to The Sensitive Man. I'm Simon Lim. Santiago, do you think that there's still a stigma when people seek treatment for mental health issues? I mean, how do you think society can change the perception of people regarding mental health?
Yes, there continues to be a stigma with mental health. This is not only here in Singapore. I think it's a worldwide phenomenon. And I think as human beings, we need to be more understanding and compassionate about the suffering of others. I think there's a global general conception that being depressed or feeling anxious is regarded as being weak. And I think that prevents people from seeking help and from getting the proper treatment and the proper intervention. My recommendation to people is always to seek help, even if you have to do it in secret. It is okay not to be okay. And I think as long as you're not doing anything illegal or immoral, it should not really matter what other people think. You should take care of yourself and be open about it if you want to, or at least be secretive about it. But seeking professional help is very, very important.
And sometimes they may need to take a break for a while, get themselves integrated back into society.
That's absolutely right. And one of the things I've noticed is that we tend to put pressure on ourselves, and society puts pressure on us in that we are expected to behave or feel in a certain way most of the time. The brain cannot sustain that amount of energy, meaning I cannot be happy 24/7. There are times where I'm going to feel sad, or I'm going to feel anxious, or I'm going to feel stressed. And that's absolutely okay, so long as you do it in a time, in a healthy dose. And what I mean by that is feeling happy must have a space. Feeling sad has a space, so long as you don't overshoot it, you don't overdo it. And the same goes for stress, anxiety, or even bereavement. The hopelessness and the helplessness that the pandemic has created has its time and its space. And I think it's healthy to a certain degree to feel some of that, and then also be able to cultivate a space and a time where you're more positive and you're happier about things. So I think that we should find the right time and the right space for both the positive and the negative emotions. Otherwise, if we're expected to sustain happiness for 6 months without feeling sad, no organism is going to be able to manage that. And that's when we get sadder, and that's when things can get more complicated in terms of our mental health.
And there will be moments when you have to face some difficulties or unhappiness, and that's normal.
That's absolutely normal, and it should be expected, and it should be done. As a mental health practitioner myself, I cannot expect to be happy all the time. I go through stress, and I feel sad, and I feel anxious, just like everyone knows. And what I've learned to do is have my moments of downtime where I allow myself to feel somewhat anxious and depressed, or sad, or hopeless. I just don't let it get to me to the point where it starts affecting my mental health negatively. I learned how to compartmentalize, and then once I'm through that, I say, okay, now it's my time to feel happy. Now it's my time to be positive. I'm happy and positive for as long as I can be. And then if I feel stress, I do feel stress for as long as I need to, again, making sure that it's not impacting my mental and physical health in a detrimental and dangerous way.
You're listening to The Sensitive Man. I'm Simon Lim. Santiago, one of the hardest things in trying to reach out to someone whom you think needs help concerning mental health is that they tend to isolate themselves. They appear withdrawn. What do you think can be done to encourage them or convince them that they need some help by seeking treatment?
That's a very good question and a very good point, because I think more people isolate themselves because they don't want to feel re-victimized. Meaning, when you tend to tell somebody you're depressed, people tend to downplay it or make fun of you or criticize you for it. They treat it as if it were a crime. And people don't want to feel re-victimized. If you're telling somebody you have problems, that you're feeling sad, that you're feeling anxious, it's because you expect to be understood. And more often than not, people are not understood, particularly by the close loved ones. I always tell people, again, it's very important you seek help, even if it has to be in secret. As long as you're not doing anything immoral or illegal, it should not really matter what other people think of you. That drives a very strong point because we tend to care too much about what other people think of us. And I think that's the number one factor for people that keeps people from seeking help.
And Santiago, what exactly is brain mapping, from the perspective of Mind Lab?
Well, brain mapping is a very interesting assessment because what we do is we use state-of-the-art technology in a non-invasive way to look at your brain electrical activity. So we can see what your brain is doing in real time. We can read the brain waves, and then we can convert those brain waves into 3D images of your brain. What the brain mapping tells us is the areas of your brain that are working well, and we can help work better. But we can also look at the areas of your brain that need fine-tuning to optimize your sleep, to optimize your energy, your focus, your motivation, your drive, your energy. So we can create a better version of you and help you sleep better and perform better and be happier and do better at work and do better at school and your sport and whatever you do. So you don't have to feel broken or you don't have to be broken to really optimize your brain. You can do it whether you feel depressed or whether you feel happy, whether you are undergoing a lot of stress or you're just feeling fine, but you want to do better. And the brain map allows us to do that in real time in a very, very effective way.
Does the client get a printout and see some sort of analysis?
Yes. We place a cap on the person's head, which it looks like a shower cap, and it has some sensors that detect brainwaves in the brain. So we put some gel on the sensors. It's non-invasive. There's no pain. There's no electricity. And the person will see the electroencephalogram, their EEG, on a big screen. And then they can also see the 3D images of the brain. Now, what I like about the brain map is that when somebody comes to get the scanning of the brain, they don't tell me anything. And the reason I don't ask them to tell me anything is because I want to tell them why they come see me. In other words, I take the brainwave activity and I translate it into meaningful language for them. So I can tell the client if I see they're having a memory issue, if they're having trouble forgetting words, if they're not sleeping properly, if they have a tendency to feel upset about certain things. And that helps generate a lot of credibility because the brain is doing the talking. I'm just relaying the message to the person. And they can then see it on the screen. They can also get a full comprehensive report where we explain things in greater detail for them.
Do you call them electrodes?
We call them electrodes or sensors. Sensors more of an appropriate word because we don't want people to feel that there's electricity involved. The technical term is electrode, but to avoid people feeling somewhat afraid of the assessment, we call them sensors. And we call them sensors because they're also sensing what's happening in the brain. They're picking up that information and then they're putting them through an amplifier so people can see them see the activity on a big screen.
So are they answering questions while the sensors are on their head?
Well, you could do it in different ways. Normally, what we do at Mind Lab is we are recording 10 minutes with your eyes closed, and you're sitting there just relaxing, and we're looking at your sleep patterns or your vigilance patterns. So with the eyes closed, we can see how healthy your sleep is. With the eyes open, sometimes you're just looking at the screen, but sometimes we have you do some math, some reading, some cognitive tasks, because we want to see how your brain responds to different stimuli and how well the brain is responding to that stimuli. So again, we see the areas of the brain that are functioning properly, but we can optimize and help them work better. And then we also look at the regions of the brain that need a fine-tuning. So this is where we optimize your sleep and your mood and your memory and your energy and anything that has to do with your brain, anything that makes you you, and we make that a better version. In the end, you're a better performer regardless of what you do in life.
The Sensitive Man. Santiago, many people in Singapore suffer from sleep disorder. So what can you tell me about sleep disorder and treatment for it at MindLab?
Well, that's a very relevant question because I can tell you one thing. What my colleagues around the world and I are finding is that it's rare to find healthy sleep patterns. Poor sleep, unhealthy sleep is now more the norm than the exception. Mm-hmm. This is happening not only in Singapore, this is happening around the world. You know, back in Colombia, where I come from, I was doing EEGs, and people are not sleeping well. Mm-hmm. And I have done a couple of dozen EEGs here in Singapore so far, and people are not sleeping well. The pandemic has really impacted the way we sleep. It has impacted our peace of mind. But the use of technology is playing a very important role in that. We go to bed with our cell phone. We go to bed with our laptop. We go to bed with our tablet. And we use it into the wee hours of the night. Our brains were not designed to look at technology for that long. So normal life events like pandemics and other types of stressors play a role. But we have also made very drastic negative lifestyle changes that are impacting that. And sleep is very important because sleep has to do with learning. Sleep has to do with memory consolidation. Sleep has to do with diabetes. Sleep has to do with dementia. A lot of us are not engaging and practicing good sleep hygiene, are going to end up having a lot of mental and physical issues down the road. And what we do on MindLab, it's quite relevant because we can train your brain to help you sleep better. So you don't have the need. We can reduce the need for you to use your cell phone to fall asleep, and we can help you retrain your brainwave patterns so that when you close your eyes, you're really drifting into recovery and restful and nice deep sleep.
Now let's talk about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, which affects both adults and children. What is the line of treatment at MindLab for ADHD?
Well, we use a technique called neurofeedback, and what we do is we place one or two sensors or electrodes on your scalp. And again, it's non-invasive. And what we do is we first do the brain map to look at what your brain is not doing right. We identify the areas of your brain that need to be trained, the specific frequencies that need to be trained, and then we place the electrodes. With neurofeedback, you are controlling some form of feedback on the screen. That means you are controlling a movie or a video game or music or any other form of interactive screen by only controlling it with your brainwaves. You're not using the keyboard, you're not using the mouse, you're not using any additional help, only your brain activity. And we teach you how to make more of certain brainwaves to focus better and have more energy, and how to make less of other brainwaves that cause you to lose your focus or drift away or space out or get tired and not be able to have enough energy to do things. So neurofeedback is quite useful, and it's actually endorsed by medical associations around the world, meaning that it's more specific and it's more efficient than medication for ADHD. Neurofeedback brain training was born out of the need to train with ADHD clients. So it's one of the most efficient, evidence-based, non-invasive interventions for ADHD, and it helps anybody across any age with any type of ADHD symptomatology or presentation. So the brain map will tell us what we need to do, and then we go train your brain for 20, 30, 40 sessions, and then we rescan your brain. That helps us show the difference. People with ADHD will report improvements in sleep, in focus. I've trained dozens or if not hundreds of kids and people with ADHD across my 13-year career. And we have kids who are flunking out of school who then become honor students, and college students who are jumping from one school to the other, not knowing what to study, to graduating with honors and then doing masters and PhDs. So training the brain, that's really pay off. And neurofeedback, the brain training we do at MindLab, is one of the best ways to do it.
And someone who's not fully aware of MindLab may want to know if he or she needs a referral from their general practitioner or GP to undergo a treatment by MindLab. Do they need a referral?
No, the good thing is that you do not. I mean, if your GP is aware of us and they refer you to us, that's a very good thing. But you don't need a referral from a GP. You can contact us by going to our website, www.themind-lab.com, and you can book a discovery call with me, or you can write Santiago at themind-lab.com. You can write me an email to book a discovery call and get an appointment. So You don't need a GP referral. You don't need another professional referral. If you do have one, we welcome it, but you can call us and directly schedule an assessment and a discovery call with us.
You're listening to The Sensitive Man. I'm Simon Lin. Santiago, perhaps you can take us through, what happens when a client walks through the door of MindLab. What's the client care process?
Well, the first thing we do is usually talk to the clients over the phone or video call with Zoom, and we answer as many questions and concerns they have. Some of the people who contact us have already done some neurofeedback before. Some of them are familiar with it, and some of them have no idea what neurofeedback is. Now, regardless of the case, what we do is we answer as many questions as we can and address as many concerns as we can. And once the client has decided that they want to work with us, we go ahead and schedule the initial assessment. And the initial assessment consists of the brain map, a stress profile, and some neurocognitive testing that you do on a computer. It's testing your memory, your reaction time, things that we need to look to assess to see how your brain is doing. And then you get a full report. After you do that, you can then start the intervention phase with us, which is the brain training, and we do it in blocks of 20 sessions. We do an initial assessment, then we do 20 sessions of training, and then we redo the assessment, meaning we repeat the brain map, we repeat the neurocognitive testing, we repeat the stress profile. And through the course of the training, we're monitoring your progress. We're checking with you to see how things are doing and how things are going. If we have an underage client, we're checking with the parents, we're checking with the teachers at school. So we are walking with you along the way, and we're making sure that you are seeing the difference and you're seeing the results that you're looking for.
And Santiago, tell my listeners about your team at MindLab. I think it's the assurance that people are looking for when they seek treatment. So tell my listeners more about your team.
That's a very important thing because we have a team of professionals and we have the 35 years of combined experience. I'm the clinical director and I've been doing this for 13 years. I'm board certified in neurofeedback, biofeedback, brain mapping, and something called heart rate variability. We have Jyoti, who's our start trainer, and Jyoti is she's an MD, she's a medical doctor, but she also has a master's degree in counseling, and she's actually pursuing her certifications, her board certifications in biofeedback and neurofeedback. And then we also have Sylvia. Sylvia is our director, and she my associate, she recently moved to Portugal, where she's from, where she's going to start working on MindLab's branch there. And Sylvia is finishing her PhD in Saybrook University in the United States, a PhD in psychophysiology. So she's going to be engaged in a lot of research, and she is also a mental health counselor with experience in working with mothers and labor, giving birth, traumatic birth, and she's going to be managing the European side of the operation. Now, Sylvia is also getting board certified, and that's very important because that means we have undergone training and education to ensure that we're doing things ethically, providing our clients with the latest knowledge and experience when it comes to our interventions, our different interventions.
Santiago, I hear that stimulation technologies may be utilized to guide the brain into various brainwave patterns. For the layperson who doesn't know what this entails, could you please share some important facts? What to know and what important information to provide?
Right. We also use wearables, if you will, and these are units or equipment that people can use at home. And what we mean by entraining brainwaves is just using technology to have your brain behave in a certain way. If we want to sleep better, then we can use frequencies with lights or sounds or infrared lights. And again, it's non-invasive. You're not going to feel anything. But it means that it feeds your brain a particular frequency that the brain is going to mimic. And if we want to relax you and go to sleep, we give you something in the alpha brainwave range. Alpha brainwaves are usually good for sleep. If we want you to wake up more refreshed and be energized in the morning, then we give you beta frequency. Beta brainwaves are normally associated with more energy and better mental acuity. We, again, look at your brain activity. The brain map, it's really the stepping stone. It gives us the information we need to know so we can find the appropriate intervention for you. One of the added values of the brain map, other than helping us tell you why you're coming to seek our services, is that individualizes and personalizes not only the assessment, but also the intervention. What we do is not a one-size-fits-all approach. We really are personalizing the intervention in terms of the brain regions, the frequencies, and also the type of stimulation technologies that we're going to use with you. So we don't use the same equipment with everybody. We prescribe the right equipment for your particular needs, and that's very important to understand.
Thank you for that insight.
The Sensitive Man.
Santiago, I understand you're connected to colleagues in the industry who've done brain maps for people before and after COVID, and it would be great if you could provide us with any interesting insights.
Yes. For one, I can tell you that the virus is real. And two, I can tell you that it does impact the brain. What we've been able to see is people who have recovered rather very well from the virus. But we have also seen the EEGs of long haulers. And these are the people who, got infected 6 months to a year ago, and they're still having neurological symptoms. As a matter of fact, I have a very close friend, a colleague of mine in Brazil, a very healthy individual. He got infected, and symptom-wise, he was rather healthy, a fever and a few symptoms of the flu here and there. But he reports that his memory is not the same, and his mental energy is not the same. And when we looked at his brain, we can see a very common theme among COVID survivors, and it is ischemia. And that means what the virus is doing is causing sort of a bending. It's like when you kink a hose, it causes a bending of the blood vessels, and it reduces blood flow to the brain. And by the reduction of blood flow to the brain, you're going to lose function. And by function, I mean memory, I mean learning, I mean mood stability. So anything that's related to function, the virus will attack it and can really, really wreak havoc there. So protecting yourself, trying not to get infected in the first place is very important. If you do get infected, you should do anything not only to protect your immune system, but you also should do anything within your power to protect your brain health. Once you recover, doing neurofeedback or photobiomodulation, which is what we do on MindLab, can help increase your chances of recovering your brain health. Again, the virus is real, and it can attack the brain in a very aggressive way, and it can really, really create a lot of problems for a lot of people.
And I hear that there's something that MindLab does with its clients called Biofeedback. It sounds technical, but can you simplify what it means and share why it's so important?
Well, biofeedback is really important because it teaches you self-regulation. What we do is we use state-of-the-art technology that can provide you information on things like your heart rate or your respiration rate, how fast and how slow you're breathing, your muscle tension, your skin temperature. And these are all good elements to assess and determine how stress is impacting you negatively. And we can teach you with this technology to get these things under a volitional control. That means that you can train your body responses at will, and that can teach you to manage stress a lot better. Doesn't mean that you're never going to get stressed again, but it means that the way stress impacts you now is not going to be the same way it impacts you in the future. It's going to make you more resilient and more resistant to the effects of stress and anxiety, meaning that you might undergo the same amount of stress at work or at school or at home, but it's not going to impact your health, mental and physical, in such a negative way. So by playing video games, by controlling movies, you really can learn how to self-regulate and relax so you can have a stronger brain, a stronger organism that can help you prevent disease down the road. And, the effects of stress, which can be really detrimental to your health and to your body down the road, in the long term.
Santiago, what's your advice to clients when it comes to consultations?
Well, one of the questions I get asked the most is who can benefit from brain training or neurofeedback and the other services that we have at MindLab Applied Neuroscience. And my answer is anybody with a brain can apply to this. So again, it can be the person who's struggling with anxiety or depression or feeling stressed out or is not sleeping well, to the CEO, the musician, the student, or the athlete. Again, you can be peak performance and you just want to perform better, outperform your competition at work, in sports, at school. That's absolutely fine. And again, if you're not feeling so well with your sleep or your mood, and your emotions, then you can do it as well. And we work from people ages 7 and over, so 7 and all the way to 150. Anybody can do it because it's a non-invasive process. Again, we just assess your brain and we find the right intervention protocol for you. And that's very, very important. That's key.
In other words, they just come forward. They don't have to think too much about it.
That's right. You don't have to think too much about it. And again, when you visit our website and you book a discovery call with me, I will answer all your questions to the best of my ability. So I can spend, 15 to 30 minutes on the phone with you, answering all your questions. And when you come do the assessment is not an in and out process. We're sitting there for a couple of hours because, one, I want to provide you with as much information as possible, and I want you to feel that your questions are answered and your concerns are being addressed. So we're not the typical medical company where you come and you do a very specific period of time and then we send you out the door. You spend as much time as it is needed with you and your loved ones because we want you to feel that you're treating you like a human being and we really, really care about your health. So sometimes I would end up spending 3.5 hours with people when we do the assessment because they have lots of questions. They run me through their condition and their symptomatology, and my job is to sit there and listen, and that's what we do at MindLab.
You're listening to The Sensitive Man. I'm Simon Lim.
Santiago, in elderly care, what are the areas that the MindLab team can help a senior?
Well, with seniors, it's a very interesting work because most of them, once they start experiencing problems with their memory, the first thing that they can concern about is dementia, Alzheimer being the main one. Or, sometimes they get tremors in their hands and they think it's Parkinson. Well, the brain map can really help differentiate normal aging processes, or it can help us determine whether we need further medical assessment because we suspect something more serious may be going on. Fortunately, most seniors will have healthy brains, and they can come from brain-boosting protocols. That means we can enhance your memory, we can help you with your sleep, we can help you with mood regulation if you're feeling cranky as you age, or you are forgetting things here and there, or you just want to go back and do things you used to do before. You want to go read that book again, you want to go gardening, you want to play golf. We can certainly train your brain to do that. One of the miraculous things about the brain is that it is really plastic, and that means it can be shifted. It's malleable at any age. We used to think that when you get to your 70s, 80s, 90s, there's nothing you can do, and that's not true. The brain continues to be malleable. It continues to be flexible for the rest of our lives. Normally, the younger you are, the easier it is because your brain is younger, but it does not mean that seniors cannot benefit from this. They do benefit from this, and we can train the brain. I have worked with people as old as 98 years old.
Wow.
And people very healthy with just a couple of memory issues. I've worked as young as 5 years old, as old as 98. Anybody with a brain can benefit from our work.
And now, Santiago, let's get to know you a bit. How do you stay positive yourself? I mean, is it doing small things for yourself, like taking a walk or ordering your favorite food? What keeps you happy and positive?
Well, that's a very good question. It takes me back to the point where my recommendation for people is find moments where you can experience different emotions. So compartmentalize how you feel. There are hours of the day in which I just make the decision to feel happy and joyful. And there will be moments in which I'm feeling sad or upset or hopeless or anxious. And I will just let the emotions flow through. I just want people to make sure that they're not overshooting it and it's going to be detrimental and very negative to their mental and physical health. Do not expect to be happy 24/7, but do not expect to feel sad 24/7 either. So find moments to feel different emotions. That's very important. Now, exercise is a big one for me. I come from a family of former football players, soccer players. So exercise and sports have always been a very important part of my life. And if it weren't for exercise, my mental health would not be the same. And that's what I recommend for people. Now, I also take good care of my nutrition because nutrition has a lot to do with your brain health and obviously with your mental health. So I have had the privilege of working with very good professionals who have been able to design a very specific anti-inflammatory diet for me. And it's just made a tremendous difference in my sleep, in my mood, in my energy. So I would suggest that people exercise, that they take care of their nutrition, and that they compartmentalize their emotions. Now, I enjoy reading and learning, so I find joy in reading about any topic, really. I normally read 2 to 3 books a month. It's something that keeps my brain young, it keeps it sharp, and it keeps me learning on different topics. So my suggestion to people in these times is exercise as much as you can. Exercise, doing some kind of exercise that you enjoy. Take care of your nutrition. Find positive people to surround yourself with. Read and learn. And most importantly, find moments to feel happy. If there are moments where you're feeling stressed, that's absolutely okay. If you feel sad or depressed, that's absolutely okay. Just don't let it get out of hand and it becomes detrimental or potentially dangerous for your own well-being.
Excellent tips indeed.
The Sensitive Man.
Now, everyone can do with some inspiration to keep improving in areas of their life. Santiago, who has been your inspiration and what have you learned?
Well, I really draw my inspiration from different people, historical figures, athletes. I would say probably my favorite athlete of all time is Michael Jordan. And I really try to emulate him because of his mental toughness and his approach to the game of basketball. Not only how he approached basketball, how he approached life. You know, John Kennedy, President Kennedy was another inspiration of mine. Neil Armstrong, first man to walk on the moon. I normally try to find people who've done great things in their field and look to emulate their behaviors and their demeanor and their mentality and their approach to life and work to the best of my ability. I think having those role models puts you in a frame of mind where it's easier to overcome distractions and it's easier to manage the uncertainties of life, especially now more than ever, because we don't know how this pandemic is going to play out in the next couple of months or in the next couple of years, for that matter. So I think that's key, finding inspiration in people who've done great things and trying to emulate their mentality to the best of your ability.
If there is a philosophy that you believe in, what's that philosophy?
I think that you should do whatever you want to do in your life. I think you should listen to your heart, and I think being true to yourself is very important. Unfortunately, there was a time in my life in which I was listening to others and I was not listening to myself. It was unfortunate because it sidetracked me from where I wanted to go, but it was fortunate because I learned from it as well. Now I stay true to myself, and again, if I'm not doing anything illegal or immoral, I really do my best not to care what people think of what I'm doing. And I follow my heart, even if it goes against the status quo. And I think being true to yourself, to your dreams and your goals is very, very important because it provides you with the ability to be happier, better focused, and more resilient in the end. I think that's the bottom line.
And Santiago, what are some kind words that you can leave my listeners, so as to offer them comfort and hope?
Well, the first thing I want to tell people out there is that Mind Lab is here for you, and we are a team of professionals that care about you as a human being, and we're here for you. And I want to say that it's okay not to be okay. So if you're feeling sad, that's fine. If you're feeling stressed, that's okay. It's what makes us human. We're not beings that were designed to be happy 24/7. We're beings that were designed to feel emotions. And negative emotions can be beneficial and can teach you a lot so long as you manage them efficiently.
Thank you, Santiago, for being on my show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had a great time.
The voice of Santiago Brand, Clinical Director of Mind Lab. And I'm sure that you found his words truly encouraging, yeah? To find out more about Mind Lab, do visit their website. It's www.themind-lab.com. Once again, it's www.themind-lab.com. And I'll include this website link in the text portion of this podcast. Now, you may also wish to follow Mind Lab via their social media links on Facebook and Instagram. So I'll be providing you with those links too. Well, it's been awesome having you join me for another episode of the Sensitive Man podcast. And I'm going to leave you with a meaningful quote by Marcus Aurelius that I think is important. The quote reads, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Unquote. This is Simon Lim, and thanks for listening to the Sensitive Man podcast.
The Sensitive Man.
The Sensitive Man is a production of SPH Radio. I'm Simon Lim, your host and producer for this podcast. Special thanks to Joseph McDade for the music. You can also find this show on iTunes, Google Podcast, and streaming on Google Home. And now you can listen to the Sensitive Man podcast on audio, AWEDIO for audio. Visit audio.sg.